Hello and welcome to the fifth year of the ICBE Spring Webinar Series. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you are all well and staying healthy. If you are here today, you're here to learn more about what we're calling the ins and outs of competency-based education, which really we're going to talk about our CBE journey in the last 5 years. We will go ahead and share all the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you have any questions along the way, please put them in the question box. We'll try to answer as we go, or we'll also answer some questions at the end of the presentation as well. So, Courtney, next slide, please. For those of you that do not know me, I am Carlos Rivers. I currently serve as the Executive Director for the Institute for Competency-Based Education. And my role largely focuses on supporting both the development and research related to CBE, both at A&M Commerce and the state of Texas. And here with me today is Courtney Clanton. Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Courtney Clanton. I'm the Administrative Coordinator with ICBE and been the one sending out those emails. I'm happy you guys made it here.
Basically, we wouldn't be able to operate without her. With further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So really, guys, our mandate as the Institute for CBE is to advance the understanding of this education model and to grow CBE programs at Commerce, the state, and the work we do with all of you and the Competency-Based Education Network really nationwide. And the Institute was funded to support the 4 goals for the state strategic plan, 60 by 30 TX. And by 2030, we want at least 60% of Texans ages 25 to 34 to have some type of certificate or degree. Emphasis in reduction to time completion, improving marketable skills, and of course, that talk related to reducing student debt as well. Hi, Tisha. We're glad to have you here. I always start the presentations with a general statement of what A&M Commerce brings to the table. A&M Commerce has been around for over 100 years. It's a public doctoral R2 institution. It has 13,000 students. And by all means, Texas A&M Commerce is very traditional by nature, right? So very on the ground, as you can see here. Focus on that 18 to 24-year-old. So what I'm trying to say with this image is that if A&M Commerce was able to deliver CBE and adapt our offerings for adult learners, I'm sure that most of your institutions can head in this direction as well. Charles, my mic, okay, let me see. I am on my computer, so okay, we'll see what we can do. Okay, Charles, and I apologize if you're not hearing me well. Okay. So really, and what I mean by 5 years in operation, A&M Commerce, the CBE program at A&M Commerce and South Texas College, for that matter, were the first CBE programs in the state of Texas. Okay, in partnership with the coordinating board. So when we started, it was really the phrase building the plane while flying it. Okay, there was not a whole lot of resources or institute or networks, right? We did not have a lot of resources out there. But what I can tell you all, and you will learn about our model, but in reality, there is no one size fits all approach to CBE. So as you head in this direction of starting your own CBE program, you need to be open to surprises and learn, and your teams need to learn to adapt, because it does change the way you operate your traditional program. So we'll start with that premises in mind. Another key aspect for the development of the first CBE program in the state of Texas was the importance of leadership. Leadership is vital for the success of these programs, for the long-term success of these programs. So when this program launched in 2014, our leadership team under Dr. Mary Hendricks, they had to gain a lot of support from upper level administration. Not only that, but obtaining buy-in from faculty and staff at the university. and of course identifying those faculty champions that were not only going to build the program, the courses for the program, but hopefully teaching the program as well. And then something that we sometimes leave behind is operationally, right? How do we build a sound program from the ground up? So really working with your operational units and support service units to make sure they have a voice before launch and not once the program has been built out. Now, for us, it's also important to mention, I think we don't talk about grant funding enough when it comes to CBE. The importance of leveraging grant funding if you have identified a program that you want to build. Our first program in organizational leadership, which we'll talk a little bit about, was created through an EDUCAUSE Next Generation Learning Challenges grant. Okay, so we used that grant for the first couple of years of the program as it reached financial stability. Our second program, the same. It was our criminal justice program. I see Jimmy here with us today. The second program was created through a Texas Affordable Baccalaureate grant through the coordinating board and the Texas Higher Education Foundation. And most recently, we just received an award to develop 2 new CBE programs. And again, these 2 new programs will be developed through additional grant funding from the Greater Texas Foundation. So be thinking about grant funding opportunities in your state or with your state's board as well. Now, when we started building these programs, we always started with the end in mind. For us, it was always about building programs for adult learners. And so what student population are you really trying to serve and why, right? What career or programs really fits with that specific student population? And in your service area, right, what are those jobs and skills in high demand in those areas? And so when you start building your documentation, either for grant proposals or for program proposals, be sure to combine your proposals with Bureau of Labor Statistics type data, looking at student and labor market demand trends, job outlook, etc. Right? So just to give you an example, our organizational leadership program was really built out because in our service area, our leaders in our service area told us that there was a huge need for middle-level managers, and the job outlook for middle-level managers was very high as well. So that's how we got started on our path down with CBE. And then, of course, and most of us do these, right, keeping it workforce relevant and having an advisory board, right? So important to have your advisory board because it's truly you're trying to meet the labor market demands in your service area. So our CBE programs are built by faculty in partnership with our advisory board members that not only include the employers, but we try to have subject matter experts, right? Those experienced professionals in their respective fields, right? So for our criminal justice program, our advisory board has police officers, captains, judges, right? Everyone's included in our advisory board meetings. Not only that, but that industry involvement is critical when you're defining the competencies, but also when it comes to the program review aspect to make sure that your program is meeting what we're set out to push, right, as well. The last thing I'll say about making it workforce relevant, and we've found this, and I'll touch upon this with the criminal justice program, is awarding credit for professional certifications. How many professional certifications are out there that individuals could leverage into a degree program? So mapping out competencies to credit hours, right? And giving credits where credit is due so they can jump into your programs and have a head start. And I'll speak a little bit more about that when we reach the slide for our criminal justice program.
And I'll add, your advisory boards make a great opportunity to build that trust with the employers. They for them to trust your program and hire your graduates, right? If they had the opportunity to be a part of building the degree, so they know that your graduates have the skills that they are looking for, building that word of mouth advertisement.
So I mentioned a couple slides ago our why, right? And really this was our why when we started in 2014, and it continues to be our why. And that's the adult population in the state, right? So out of the close to 18 million adults in the state, around 4 million have some college or no degree. Okay, so they've accumulated all these credit hours and really have not seen a return on investment from their higher education experience. So that represents roughly 22% of that population. However, what's more concerning to us is that only 36% of this population have an associate degree or higher. So that's way below the state's goal of 60% by 2030. For us, CBE has the value proposition to bring these adult learners back to higher ed and finish something that they might have started a long time ago. So now I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, and she's going to talk a little bit about the key differences from our traditional BAS program.
And like Carlos said earlier, there are what we like to call flavors. There are many flavors of CBE, so this is just our flavor difference for CBE versus the traditional BAAS. So they're both online, but we've got a time frame difference. We've got a subscription model versus the pay per credit hour. We're more flexible versus the weekly regular assignment. Students can accelerate, leverage their prior learning. They have to show mastery, and we use OER. But really focus on that top, I guess, second line there. Traditional BAAS, the time is fixed, but the learning is variable. With the CBE version, the learning is fixed, but the time is variable. Let's go into these in a little more detail. So the subscription model, again, we got a term difference. We're looking at 7-week terms. If you think about that, that's 2 terms within your traditional fall or spring semester. And students pay a flat $750. There's no additional fees. They're not paying for books. That is the cost. And so on this course load example up there, in term 1, student just takes 2 courses, which is also our standard. A student signing up for a term registers for 2 courses at a time. Once they complete a course, they are able to accelerate and sign up for an additional course, and so on and so forth. We do have some limits on the time when they can register, but that's a discussion for a different webinar. And this allows students to leverage that prior learning. If a student, well, let's go back. We're talking about adult learners. Unlike your traditional students who need to be given those experiences to learn, your adult learners have already had these experiences. They've been working for years in the fields. Let's let them use that. We have that that individual who's been working in banking forever. They know Excel in and out. They make Excel spreadsheets every day. They've got to analyze them, make presentations. Let them use that. They'll use their experience, work their way through the course, and move on. Let's go on to the next one. So, as I said, our terms are 7 weeks long, and at $750 per term, that's no more than $4,500. That's the most a student will pay for a full year if they're taking CBE courses every term.
And the reason,
part of CBE course. Oh.
Let me add something here. The reason I like showing this term breakdown is for those of you that are operating in 16-week terms. This is how we break down our 7-week parameters within that term structure, and we do our reporting. That way we can split CBE term 1 for term 2. So we use the part of term code to do all of our reporting for CBE programs. Go ahead, Courtney.
And thank you for saying that, because I also missed very important part, because our students take 2 classes a term. And then, as we said, that allows us to fit 2 terms within that traditional 16 weeks. That's 4 classes in total. That is a full-time student. That's full-time financial aid. They'll be moving faster through their degree than if they were taking 2 courses at a time, because these are students who generally, they do not have the life capacity to take more than 2 classes at a time. They just aren't able to focus on that. But now they're able to move through 4. And so, one second, we have a question down here. We'll get into that in a little bit about prior learning. Or Carlos, if you want to jump in.
No, go ahead. The next couple of slides will answer that for her.
And so with mapping competencies, we're working, it's no one size fits all. We're working from the bottom up versus top down. We're looking at, as we talked about with the advisory boards, we're looking at the competencies. What are the statements? They need to be specific, actionable, measurable, building into learning outcomes, learning objectives, assessment, and our resources. One of the things I always like to make sure to say when we're talking about textbooks and using OER, open educational resources, if you're building a program with the goal to allow students to accelerate because the courses are flexible and they do not have regular due dates, then OER is required. If you're telling your student that they can accelerate, but then they have to wait to acquire their book, it is not entirely flexible. They hit a stopping point. They hit a barrier until that arrives, and that could be money to purchase the book at that time. It could just be shipping, because we know shipping has been incredibly difficult lately. So please keep that in mind. So what does a course look like? Ours are set up with a pre-test and a post-test. Students will take their pre-test, and that assesses where they're at right now. And then your faculty member will look at their score and provide guidance. And so we've got some examples here on the screen. So the student makes a 60% on their pre-test. Faculty member meets with them, gives them feedback and guidance, and says, hey, let's look at learning outcome 2 and 3, because that are the learning outcomes that you seem to be having difficulties with. So the student will work through the materials in those sections and then attempt the post-test. They must make an 80% on the post-test in order to pass the class. If they do not make an 80%, they have to retake it. Now they could have another meeting with their faculty member and be given guidance again on where they need to focus their efforts. If they feel ready, or when they feel ready, they can take the post-test again. They can take it up to 3 times. And then afterwards, they'll complete the course project. The course project is this culminating project where they have to put these competencies into action to prove what they are. Earlier, I mentioned Excel. So we have a data-driven decision-making course. And so the project is manipulating this Excel sheet, coming up with answers. They're having to look through the data, come up with their own conclusions, and then make a recording of themselves as if they were presenting these materials to their manager on what the department should be doing moving forward. So the second example, student makes an 80% on their pretest. Well, the 80% is what's required. They do not need to work through the materials if they feel ready to go on to the post-test. So they can go ahead and move on. They make an 80% on the post-test and then do their course project. And then the third example, the student makes a 30%. So really they need to go through most of all the material. They didn't have those prior experiences to already have known the course content. And then here, briefly, we'll go over the rates and what this looks like.
Add something in that last slide, Courtney. So just to give you guys an example, and for those of you that know me, know this example, but we had a statistician of 25 years in the Army go through our program, right? So statistics 101, as you can imagine, right, he was able to do it really quickly. In fact, he was able to get over a 95% in the post-test and complete that course within 3 days. Same student, art appreciation, spent all 7 weeks building those competencies. So that's the beauty behind competency-based education, that students leverage their knowledge, skills, and abilities to accelerate in some courses, or decelerate and take more time in those courses that they still need to build and master those competencies. Go ahead, Courtney.
I had myself muted there. To add to that, some just real life examples. My husband, he went through the organizational leadership program, the CB version. And it was very interesting for me to watch him go through the courses because he struggled a lot with traditional coursework. but the CBE version just really worked well for him. And one of his courses, I can't remember all the details, but the course project, that end assignment, was related to organizational flowcharts. He had just done that for his work. He had just created their new organizational flowchart, and that was the most I've ever seen him enjoy doing his homework. It made a lot of sense to him. And then going through the course content, he didn't need to delve as deeply into many parts because he did have that experience, right? Because he was creating that for work, but he would tell me about what he learned on how to do it better. He was still improving himself. He was much more invested than I've usually seen him. All right. So our rates. And again, this is a topic that we'll go into more depth in a future webinar with our own Dr. Yvonne Villanueva-Russell and Risha Montgomery. And they're here now. Let's see if they're going to give me any comments. But one second, let me take. So courses need to be offered. All courses are offered all the time because, again, if a student is able to accelerate the course, you never know when the course needs to be there. These students are coming in at different levels and at different times. The CBE adjunct rate is $200 per completed student up to $3,000 max. So we have some examples over there. English 1301, there's 18 students enrolled. Let's do the math. That's $1,600. But in Math 1314, we have 15 students enrolled, and we reach the cap right there. And then in that last course, organizational leadership, we have 30 students enrolled. Well, that math would, go over our 3,000, but that is the cap. The cap is a $3,000 rate. And then on the right there, you'll see where our course enrollment cap is for students in the course. We have 35 for our regular CBE courses, but we do have a few exceptions. And I will hand it back to Carlos.
Okay, so a bit ago, I mentioned our why, right, of the students we're trying to serve. And so this is actually the actual student demographics of students we're serving in the program. So average age of students in the program is 38, very, very different from the traditional on-the-ground setting, 18 to 24-year-old that our traditional programs are trying to serve. So we are really catering to our niche market, which is adult learners. 92% of all enrolled students are ages 25 and up. Only 34% are Pell recipients, and compared to, I believe, close to 70% in more traditional settings. And I do believe this is because of the subscription model. The max they'll pay a year is $4,500. So what we're seeing is that a lot of students either are self-pay or they're receiving some type of tuition reimbursement dollars from their employers. What we're seeing also is that employers have around a max of $5,000 per year. So it really fits with this type of model. We're seeing an organic growth of tuition reimbursement programs coming through CBE. In terms of race and ethnicity, we thought these programs would cater more for our minority students, but still we have more white students in the program, although we've seen an increase in minority enrollment. On average, students bring around 72 semester credit hours. So like I mentioned before, this is not a student that's really just starting out. Usually they've accumulated credits, and due to life circumstances, whether that's family or a job, they simply left higher education, and through CBE, through this opportunity, they're trying to come back and finish their degree. Let's go ahead to the next one, Courtney.
Again,
oh, go
I
ahead.
was going to add again, an example was my husband. He had a variety of credits from different places. Somehow he had ag courses as well as psychology. He was very close to psychology degree, but never was able to finish that. And he just needed to get it done at a certain point. We had sickness in the family, and then, you know, just having to take on responsibilities to pay the bills. You just can't spend all the time in class like he originally had planned as a traditional student out of high school.
Okay. So let's go into the two programs. So the one Courtney's husband was enrolled in is our BAS in Organizational Leadership. When the programs first started, both faculty members and employers, faculty members from A&M Commerce, South Texas College, and employers, they all got together and they mapped 99 competencies back to 120 semester credit hours. So we are a course-based CBE program. We've mentioned some of these things, but 100% online, $750 per term. We are a COC accredited university. And the total transfer hours they can bring in is 90 semester credit hours. So we really try to bring in as much, allow students to bring us in as much credits as we can. It launched spring 2014, and it is now the third largest program at A&M Commerce. And we'll get a little bit more into the numbers in a few slides. The second program is our Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice. And this one really, we're trying to cater to first responders, law enforcement officers. And so this program is a little bit unique because we are, I mentioned, awarding credit for industry certification. So in this program, we are mapping back the TCOL, the Police Academy certification, and awarding up to 30 credit hours in transfer credits for police officers. What we noticed is that a lot of police officers did not have a lot of credits under their belt as students did in the organizational leadership program. So by providing this opportunity and mapping that the police academy certification, this program has grown from 6 to over 200 students in a year. So pretty incredible growth for this program, and we expect it to continue to grow. Okay, so I mentioned the operational units a while back, and I'm mentioning it again because I don't think we talk a lot in CB about these key stakeholders. So my recommendation to you if you're early in your CB journey is to involve all your operational units as early as you can in the process, because you will eventually need to address a lot of technical issues with CBE or some limitations around your implementation. So that this is just an example of the stakeholders we've included in our conversations from the beginning, and we continue to involve as we develop new CBE programs to make sure that we're building a robust CBE infrastructure on our campus. Okay, so I saw a question about staffing. So all our CBE programs now live within the College of Innovation and Design. This is where we're housing all of our completed programs, whether they're more traditional in nature or the competency-based route. So this is where we're housing them all. So we're led by the Dean of the College, Dr. Yvonne Villanueva Russell, which will have a presentation I believe in March. Courtney, is that correct? Each program has their own academic coordinator. And in previous presentations, we've always talked about the importance of the success coach, right? We'll continue saying that the success coach role is, of course, it's very important in a CBE model, but our university recently did a shift, and we've embedded what we're calling success teams within each college at the university. So this now is not just particularly for CBE, this is a university-wide initiative. So our success teams include our academic advisor, which would be the role of the success coach, but now we also have a financial aid advisor and a concierge. The concierge focuses more on resource type questions from our students. So now we have 3 roles really catering the needs of our CBE students. We have 6 full-time instructors, but as you can see, there's a high dependency on adjuncts. We have over 60 adjuncts teaching in our programs. Okay, then just to mention a couple things in terms of issues you might find with operational units. Think about it this way, right? Most SIS system, your student information systems, are focused on that standard term, right? Your 16-week periods. CBE, for the most part, or the more programs I've seen, operate in non-standard terms, so we can allow students to accelerate. So you're faced with a lot of issues when it comes to non-standard terms. Before I speak to the issues, I just wanted to briefly mention about transcripts, right? We've seen universities use both traditional or CBE mastery-based transcripts. We at A&M Commerce decided to go the traditional route for two reasons: transferability, right? If this was not the right fit for our students, we wanted them to take that traditional transcript so they can enroll in another program. And also when they apply to a master's program, right? Making sure that their courses look the same as any peer as they apply to graduate school as well. So some of the issues we face with our registrar's office is, of course, state reporting, the tracking of census dates, students accelerate in and out of the program, drops for non-payments and payment plans, and then tracking of veteran and military service member benefits. I will tell you, our registrar's office is awesome and innovative, and so we've managed to automate some of these issues as they come up. Next one.
Earlier, it was mentioned about all the important parts, with leadership being vital, and Carlos mentioned really talking to all these support areas before you get started. Please do that. Now that everybody's doing Zoom meetings, there's no reason not to just have a Zoom call, bring somebody from every department in, and just check in with each other.
Okay, financial aid. I think issues will be institution specific, right? So I know institutions that the registrars is where they're having a lot of headaches. For us, it has really been financial aid. And it's just simply because CBE aid, student aid, is awarded different than your traditional program, right? So our students enroll in a minimum, and Courtney mentioned this before, of 2 courses, right? 6 semester credit hours each 7 weeks, but they are allowed to add another course and another course if they are able to successfully accelerate within that 7-week time frame. So what we found with CBE is that for us, it's a manual intensive process to calculate SAP for each individual student after every 7-week period. The other thing I'll warn you guys about is that students cannot really switch in the middle of a term from a traditional program to a CBE program or vice versa. Our understanding or our limited understanding for our financial aid office is that it causes a lot of issues when awarding aid. So we do not allow for the transfer of programs from a traditional to a CBE route. And then another thing for you all to be aware of is the discussion around incompletes versus failing grades. When we first started out, we allowed for incompletes. So what would happen is, because students were going in 7-week fashions, what they would say, well, I can take the incomplete and start this course the next term, right? And so guess what that happened to our incomplete percentage? It skyrocketed, right? So now we have removed that option, and so if a student does not complete by the first 7-week period, it will be a failing grade, and that's the course they'll start the next term, but we do not allow for incompletes anymore. Okay, reporting and data. And coming from the Institute, we report a lot to the state, to external stakeholders. So really, what I would recommend is starting with the end in mind, right? Your metrics should really be defined by those requests that are going to be coming in by program staff and your external stakeholders. So we sort of try to automate all of those requests coming in. It's important to get this right from the get-go. particularly with these types of new programs that stakeholders want to see evidence, right? They want to see that evidence. So for your programs, I recommend building metrics from the beginning and have continuous improvement processes tied into your program reviews. We've worked closely with IR, financial aid, right? Who are those data savvy individuals in your campus that can help you build this right from the beginning? You will notice that as you begin doing this, it will be a manual process that eventually, as you begin to scale, you will want to automate. It's not the same doing it for 7 students that those first few terms that it is now for 500 students, right? And then my recommendation is not just simply to do reporting, right? But using your data for data exploration, right? Are minority students performing at the same rate as their Caucasian counterparts? Do CBE students perform the same or better than similar type students in a traditional setting? So asking those questions to show evidence that CBE does accomplish its value proposition. The last thing I'll mention here is having your one pager, right? We use this document everywhere we go, whether we're meeting in Washington or with the state. We have a one pager of our program showing the highlights, showing all of our key performance indicators, and that CBE at Commerce does transform student lives. So speaking of data, we're going to go a little bit through the data, and hopefully for those of you in the early stages, you can use some of this information as you speak to your leadership teams. Okay, so for us, success for CBE versus our traditional computer program even starts before enrollment. As you can see here, CBE is that blue bar, traditional is the yellow bar. But really what I'm showcasing here is our enrollment conversion rates, right? And simply put, it's how many of our admitted students actually enrolled in our programs. What we found was that 7 out of 10 students in our CBE programs that are admitted enrolled, compared to 5 out of 10 in our more traditional setting. So, a difference of roughly 20 percentage points. So if you put marketing dollars behind these programs, think about it, out of 1,000 students, 700 would enroll. What we think is that students, particularly adult learners, are finding the right fit with CBE programs. And then I mentioned that our organizational leadership program is now the 3rd largest program on our campus. So here are some enrollment trends, right? What we've seen is that as our CBE program continues to grow, our more traditional computer program is sort of in an inverse relationship, declining. More and more new returning adults coming into these programs are finding that better fit program with CBE. And keep in mind that this growth has really been word of mouth. We have done zero marketing for these programs. So it's all been truly word of mouth. Okay, and then outcomes, right? People, stakeholders want to see the evidence. How are they comparing to our traditional program setting? So what we're seeing is that we're using the 2-year graduation rate because most students will reflect transfer students. They're a 4-year graduation rate, really, we don't have a lot of first-time freshmen coming into this program. So we use, for outcomes purposes, the 2-year graduation rate. What we're seeing is that our CBE students are completing, on average, 20% faster than students in our more traditional setting. So 62% in 2 years compared to almost 42% in our traditional setting. And then when we look at the outcomes that the state is requesting, right, things in relation to debt, here you can see our student loan debt. On average, students in the more traditional setting paying in a pay per credit hour model, 20,000 compared to only 9,000, close to 9,000 in the organizational CBE program. And then students with loan debt, a lower amount of students take out debt in the organizational leadership program, 37% compared to 65%. So all in all, when we're looking at cost, students are saving more than half they would have incurred if they would go the traditional completer program route. Now, I get a lot of questions about student outcomes, but I also get requests for information on institutional data as well. So I'm going to show you a couple of figures in that respect as well. So here are our direct costs for our program. Not surprisingly, faculty and support staff are, the #1 direct cost. Faculty by 2019 being that larger cost allocation. You will see what we call service agreements be really high in the first couple of years. So service agreements for us, those were educational content providers that we were paying the first few years of the program by a per student basis. So it was a huge cost for the program. Not only that, but for students that were paying for book fees as well. So you will notice that by 2019, that has been significantly been reduced. A&M Commerce our CBE programs have moved to open education resources. So now that represented a saving of close to $300,000 for the university. Not only that, but now students don't have to pay for any book fees as well. Now, I also get a lot of questions related to our indirect costs, right? And what I mean by that is some of those support services units that I showed you earlier on, which you should be constantly referring and talking to make sure that operationally that your infrastructure is well set. So in our case, I mentioned this before, but financial aid is our biggest indirect cost. In fact, we have one full-time financial aid staff member over CBE in general. IER is the second one because of the manual nature of CBE programs. However, as we automate things, that cost has significantly gone down. The registrar's office has gone down as well as we automate things. And we have begun to apply a percentage to our academic affairs units because leadership is heavily involved with supporting and promoting our CBE programs. And then in 2018 and 19, we actually added our admissions unit. What we heard back as we reached out to these areas is that they're doing a lot of work working with our adult learner population, given all the different transcripts from institutions that they're coming from. Okay. So here's the big picture for those administrators that are attending. Remember, it is a subscription model. So for us, when the program was small, right, there was a loss the first 3 years of the program, but our leadership teams knew that and understood that. But look at what happens when the programs begins to scale. 2015, the highest loss as we started to scale. By 2016, that loss is going down. By 2017, it's almost inexistent. And then by 2018 and 2019, as we're over 350 students, our program has become profitable. So that's why I mentioned the importance of grant funding those first couple of years as you scale these programs. Now, another important aspect here is that A&M Commerce decided to do our core curriculum competency-based as well from the beginning. So now, as we build new CBE programs, right, the advanced coursework, we can leverage all the existing infrastructure that we have built for that first program in organizational leadership, meaning that these programs will probably will scale and will become more profitable faster. So be thinking about these things as you begin to talk about building programs on your campus. And our recommendation is to go completely OER, right, open education resources from the get-go.
And part of developing all your core in a CBE format as well. Think about how often a transfer student comes in and they're missing just 1 or 2 of their core classes. Well, unless you have your system set up just right, they're not going to be able to take that CBE and traditional course at the same time. So you're going to just complicate the process for that student.
Okay, so we mentioned student outcomes, institutional outcomes, but we always like to showcase our students. And so I like talking about Miranda, our second student there, who is actually a banker at Chase Bank, right? And what Miranda says about the program is that it really fits into her life now as an employee, a wife, a mother, and now a student. And so really, from looking at our surveys, what we hear from our students, top thing is flexibility. Okay, not the price point. It's not about the funds. It's the flexibility to do it at their own pace. Next slide, Courtney. But guys, don't just take it from us. The American Institute for Research, in their national survey of post-secondary CBE, they do temperature taking of the field in partnership with the coordinating board, with the Competency-Based Education Network. And so, out of 602 institutions that responded, 11% already have full developed CBE programs, 492 that are undergraduate, and 96 that are graduate programs. And then look at the reasons for them adopting a CBE programs. 51% said opportunities to serve their non-traditional students, responding to workforce needs, and a desire to improve their learning outcomes. And then of those institutions that responded, 76% do believe that the number of CBE programs are going to grow nationally within the next 5 years. So as you speak to your leadership teams about CBE, this resource, this survey has a lot of good graphs and data that you can show that CBE does accomplish its value proposition. So for the Institute, we're going to continue assisting institutions across the state in developing their own CBE programs. So if you are a Texas institution, please reach out to us. We're more than glad to jump on a call and talk CBE. And for institutions out of the state as well, we'll do the same. Our president has tasked us to build 10 new CBE programs within the College of Innovation and Design. So we're continuously looking for additional grant funding to build these programs. We just received $800,000 to build 2 new programs, and we're going to continue developing CBE research and related activities as well. I didn't want to leave without providing you all with some CBE resources. I mentioned the Competency-Based Education Network. That is the prime resource for you all. Everything from faculty to IT to administration, you will find those resources with the CBEN network. I showed you the survey from the American Institute for Research. They have more information related to outcomes, multi-institutional outcomes as well. And then the coordinating board for Texas institutions, we've received funding from the Texas Affordable Baccalaureate from the state. So be aware that there are opportunities for you all to develop innovative programs on your campus.
You'll find the CBE community is very open to sharing and talking about what has worked or not worked.
Okay, so let's open it up to questions. We're doing great on time. We have about 10 minutes. I've seen a lot of questions coming. Before we get to the questions, Courtney, can you go ahead to the next slide? Okay, I just want to tell everyone that we have here, next webinar will be the multiple perspectives of a thriving CBE program. And this is actually going to be our first panel discussion. And you're going to hear from the University of Mary Harding and Baylor. And we have a star team that's going to be in that panel. Dr. Suzanne Wegman, the Associate Dean, and she's bringing her team. So you're going to hear from Tesha, who's a success coach, Marissa, that's in charge of recruitment, Greta from financial aid, and Kelsey, that's an instructional designer. So Courtney will send more information, but I do encourage you to sign up and hear more from this panel. And then next slide.
I will send the registration link with the follow-up email after this webinar.
Excellent. And then here's our, as we begin to answer questions, here's our contact information. If you guys want to reach out to us and talk more CBE, we are also, we will share a lot of our documents, grant proposals, and different things if you are heading in this direction. So Courtney, why don't we get to the questions?
All right. Okay. I'm going to jump into, there was a question asking about, can the length of terms be different than just the 7 weeks? They can. One of the other common term lengths that we've seen are 6 months. WGU does 6 months terms. I can't think of another example at the moment, but I know there's another one in Texas. Oh, yeah. A lot of that is built around the systems that you have. For us, as Carlos mentioned earlier, how we fit the 2 7-week terms within that traditional 16-week term for reporting purposes.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mentioned in the beginning, everyone has their own CBE flavor. There's really no one size fit model. So we do 7-week terms. I know institutions that do 5-week terms, 8-week terms, 6-month terms like WGU that Courtney mentioned. It will really just be based on your institutional infrastructure. For us, 7 weeks was perfect because we wanted to have a 1 week in between each 7-week period where we allowed for financial aid and also for the team members to talk and see what went right, what went wrong, and adapt for the next 7-week period. So that's why we chose that route. Okay, let's see.
There's a question about transcripts. We do not currently have micro-credentialing or badging, and the way the transcripts are, courses look no different than a traditional course on the transcript. They do not say CBE. They don't look any different.
Perfect. We have so if 8 students enroll, but only 6 complete, the instructor would receive $1,200. What is the current rate going for the program, Courtney? I think it's 200, right?
Yes.
So and Rob, there'll be a full presentation coming for go one. There you go. There you go. So we pay per, that's right, Rob, we pay per student completed. So yep, it would be 1,200. You got it. And then on the transcript question about grades, did you answer this one, Courtney? Do transcripts reflect a grade or satisfactory or unsatisfactory? We put the letter grade and the GPA, and our program only has A, B's, and F's, Louis, just for your information. Okay. Bruce, yes, the webinar is being recorded, and as long as you are signed up for it, you should receive a recording of the webinar. And we actually record all of our webinars. So there's presentations related to ROI, student ROI, to financial ROI. We have several presentations from success teams to course demos, and we always bring different subject matter experts. So this year we're going to have everything from a accreditation to a panel. So we'll continuously send out the different webinars coming up, usually through the competency listserv, and through our contact list that we've developed with the ICBE as well.
And our registration links stay live even after the webinar is over. So you're welcome to, if you come across a registration link, go ahead and register, even though it's from 2019, and you'll be emailed the recording. Right now, our website is undergoing some updates, so it's not the go-to place for information at the moment, but I recommend going to our links, any of our social medias, and you can go through our post and see our previous presentation links.
Yep. And great question. Have you seen a nursing program use the CBE format yet? So, Anne,
it's one of the top 3.
There you go. So that survey that I mentioned, from the American Institute for Research, the top 3 programs being converted to CBE are nursing, computer science, and business. So I could, Lourdes University, I think we have a couple of folks attending. We can put you in touch with some folks that are already doing CBA nursing. And if you think about it, it fits perfectly because the competencies are so well defined for nursing. So yes, and the survey results, you could use that to build a case for your leadership team that more and more institutions are heading into that direction. So great question. Oh, Bruce, we appreciate the feedback. So Brian, accreditation is an interesting issue. What expectations does SAC-COC have for your CBE programs that may be different for other programs in terms of reporting? For us, and we actually share our SAC's perspectives. So Brian, if you're interested, we can actually share that with you. But so I was not part of that original SAC's prospectus, but really what they wanted to see is that we were mapping competencies back to course-based, right? Course-based CBE programs. They didn't want to see language around, competency 1, competency 2. They wanted that, just as an example, that a course, it could have multiple competencies, but it was still course-based. So for us, students, when they signed up for a course, it's no different than how they enroll for another course on our campus. It's just delivered in a different way. But Brian, I can get you more information on that as well. Dr. VR right now is putting 2 perspectives up because we are moving into building 2 new programs, Health Services Administration program, and the second, Courtney, remind me.
Health and Safety.
And Health and Safety program as well. So those are the next 2 programs. Okay. So yes, Brian, we can talk more offline. Okay. All right. We are sort of running out of time. We want to, I know there was a question here about the definition of competency, so we can forward you competency education. So we can forward you the official definition from CBEN as well. I want to take this time to thank everyone for being here. You all had amazing questions. We will have more of these webinars every month, and we are bringing subject matter experts, so be on the lookout in your email so you can sign up and we can continue the conversation. If you do want to set up a call, please reach out to us, and we're more than glad to talk CBE with all of you. So thank you everyone for your time.
Please reach out. Thank you.
We'll stay around for the last 2 minutes if anyone has any final thoughts or questions. Thank you, guys.